I think one of the most important changes, Sanjay, is I think AI is really the first technology where traditionally people have had a push model. So if you're the CIO, the CTO, Chief AI Officer, you're having to push the company in thinking about the power of possible. Evangelizing the technology has been a key part. It becomes very important for somebody in that role to make sure you don't let the fear take over. I said I need a strategic alliance with a partner, maybe an education partner, who can help us develop the AI talent because talent is going to matter a lot. The choice that each of us have is how we adopt to it in a way to create a more positive outcome, and how we take participate in this journey are the choices that we have. So I think governance and ethics and security are some of the pillars that you actually have to invest and put in place.
Welcome to the Chief AI Officer Podcast,
where AI meets leadership.
And here is your host, Sanjay Puri.
Welcome to the CAIO Podcast, where we dive deep into the world of chief AI officers and technology leaders driving AI transformation across Fortune 1000 companies and government agencies. I'm your host, Sanjay Puri, and today we are honored to have Vishal Gupta, Global CTO and CIO and SVP of Connected Technology at Lexmark. Vishal brings a unique perspective to enterprise AI, having led multiple transformations across multiple industry giants, including Lexmark, Unisys, Symantec, and Cisco Systems. With Lexmark's recent acquisition by Xerox, Vishal is navigating one of the most significant transformations in the printing and document solutions industry, positioning the combined entity to leverage AI for next generation customer experiences. Join us as we explore his insights on building AI driven platforms, managing enterprise AI risks, as well as creating innovation cultures that deliver measurable values. Vishal, welcome to the CIO podcast.
Thank you, Sanjay. Thanks for having me.
Wonderful. Vishal, we have a global audience. It's an audience of your peers, chief AI officers, CIOs, CTOs, enterprise leaders. We have entrepreneurs, policy leaders, and just folks who are really interested in AI, and it's global. Uh, for, Tell them you had a very remarkable journey from engineering roles to becoming a global technology executive. What inspired your transition from hands-on technical work to driving enterprise AI strategy at the C-suite level?
Yeah, no, great question, Sanjay. So, I came to US in '92, and I actually started by chance, right? Sometimes you get into a good accident. So I was lucky that I got to work under a professor called George Cybenko, who had come from Urbana, Champaign. So he was the director of supercomputing there, and he and I actually got to start working on building a search engine using AI, using neural networks before Google did. And so I think that was sort of start of my journey in terms of, obviously AI back then was very different in terms of it was not as democratic, was pretty esoteric. You really had to understand a lot of maths to be able to
Hmm.
leverage it.
Hmm.
And so in that way, I have been in the world of AI for almost 30 years. And I would say, Sanjay, that some of the things that have helped me in my career have been things like thinking about both business and technology. A lot of times when you're very technology centric and you don't think about the business, then you don't end up working on the right problems. And so starting my career in management consulting, getting an MBA from Wharton, I think really helped me in understanding not just how to solve the problems, but more importantly, which problems to solve. And I think this actually does seem to matter in life because, we all have the same amount of time we work on. And so just kind of even knowing which problems are going to be material to the company, to the customers, to the future matter a lot. And then how certainly matters too. But the what seems to matter even more. And so I think that has probably been something that has helped me in my career so far.
I think you make some very important points. The what, as well as what problems to solve, obviously matters a lot. And you had, as you said, a business background, especially your MBA at Wharton. Um, the role, Vishal, of the CIO is Chief AI Officer, CTO, whatever you want to call it, especially the Chief AI Officer role, um,
Hmm.
is changing and has changed, I would say, dramatically. I talked to a lot of your peers
Right.
in the past 3 years. What is the change that you have noticed? And I'll give you the feedback from your peers.
Sure. Yeah. So, in my role, I actually do end up working with a lot of my peers as well. I'm the
Hmm.
co-chair of the body of CIOs and CTOs in DC. We have about 200 people as part of what's called Evanta, and I do a lot of speaking engagements in the industry. And I think there are three or four things to your question that have changed over the last 3, 4 years. I think one of the most important changes, Sanjay, is I think AI is really the first technology where traditionally people have had a push model. So if you're the CIO, the CTO, chief AI officer, you're having to push the company in thinking about the power of possible. Evangelizing the technology has been a key part of the job. I think AI is the first time, like, because I've seen the cloud transition, the web transition, the mobile transition, right? I would say AI is really the first time in the history of at least 3 decades that I have been involved with large companies and technology that it has flipped. Now the boards and the CEO are coming and telling you, what are you doing with AI? Right? And so that's actually a tremendous opportunity. When the company is actually asking you versus you trying to evangelize and saying, hey, think about the power of possible. This means half of your sales job is done. Now it creates other problems. They do expect you to move fast and deliver results and all of that. But at least you don't have to talk a lot about the why, right? Hey, why should we be really looking at embracing AI? I think the second piece that has really changed, Sanjay, besides the from the push to the pull model, has really been around how AI has become democratic. And what I mean by that is most technologies require a lot of understanding, require a lot of experimentation, require all kinds of certification, and AI does too. But I think by what ChatGPT was able to do, which opened it up for anybody who's even in first grade being able to go and see for themselves what the power of possible is, even just on documents itself, right? You put a prompt, you get a response, and you can create a presentation, you can even write your code. You can do what's called vibe coding these days, which is if you imagine and you prompt it, you can create it. And so I think that democratization has actually not only from the top down, but from the bottoms up unleashed a level of interest that's unprecedented for any technology. Because now your employees who were a key part of the people you were trying to bring on board
Hmm.
are already on board, in fact, are kind of almost breaking the door and saying, let us go and experiment. And
Hmm.
so that I think is another piece that is quite different. And we've
Hmm.
seen that in the last 3 years versus what we have seen in the past. I would say the third piece that is very different, Sanjay, with AI has been, uh, just like in any other hype cycle, it has honestly become a very, very hyped technology.
Hmm.
And so you cannot pick a newspaper, you cannot get on an analyst call without people referencing this in some way or the other. And I think that it's both an opportunity and a distraction. It's an opportunity in terms of you've got a lot of ideas.
Hmm.
It's a distraction because now you really do need a sophisticated understanding. Comes back to the first part of the discussion, the which things to actually solve for. Because now every vendor you deal with is going to say, I have AI. No matter which
Yeah.
the company is, everybody's tool now has AI. And so as a chief AI officer, as a CIO, what do you prioritize? Who do you partner with? What kind of governance you put in place? How do you protect your crown jewel, which is your data? How do you do it? How do you build trust in AI? How do you build explainability behind it, right? So now the good thing is the should you be using it from the top down? Everybody's on board. From the bottoms up, everybody's on board. But now the real work starts, right? It's
Hmm.
because it's democratic, because it's going at a massive pace. where in the past you had releases that would happen every 1 year, every 6 months. Here, every literally 2 weeks, you're seeing some breakthrough happening, right?
Mhm.
It's like a 5 or 7 horse race, depending upon which horses you want to be betting on, and each of them comes up with something that essentially says, I am the best. And so the pace of change, the top down from the push to the pull, the bottoms up, and the and the hype, they're all these 4 or 5 things are very different about AI than we've seen with other technologies.
Wow, you made some excellent points, and I got questions for each of them. And I'm hoping I don't lose the thread. You said obviously this is a push rather than the pull the first time you've seen that, which I think is an excellent point because you don't have to evangelize it so much. On that point, Vishal, and I want to come back to those other points, I hope I remember. Is change management still an issue if you're not evangelizing it?
Oh, 100%. And I'll tell you why.
Hmm.
So the good news is, all your board members, your CEO, your management team are encouraging you as the chief AI officer or the CIO, CTO to say, uh, what is our AI strategy, right? The challenge where the change management really comes in is really in two forms. One, you do have to prioritize. So, for example, when we started looking at it the first time, we said, okay, let's do some kind of, brainstorming, and boom, we had 2,000 ideas, right? And so the prioritization is very critical for the change because you will get involved in a lot of proof of concepts and experimentation and maybe have nothing to show. So that's one aspect of it. I think the second aspect of it, which is also very critical, is AI is also introducing a lot of fear, Sanjay, right? It's introducing fear, and rightfully so, among a lot of the employees and stakeholders to say, what's going to happen to my job, right? If AI can truly do anything, what does it mean for me? And so it becomes very important for somebody in that role to make sure you don't let the fear take over. So, how do you drive that change in a positive way where people are looking forward to it, where it's a force multiplier and not something that's giving people a pause and not something that's making them think, oh my God, right? Am I unleashing something that's going to go after myself? Um, and so, from those aspects, in terms of both thinking through the right use cases, figuring out with your peers, with the board, with the management team, and bottoms up, what are the top maybe 5 bets versus 500 bets that we should be making? So these are going to be material. So that aspect and the aspect of making your employees comfortable with it, encouraging them to think about it, accommodating the challenges that they may have,
Hmm.
become key part of the change management process.
Uh, you kind of hit on something that I wanted to ask you later. This was something that your peers wanted to find out from you. You said 2000. There's so many use cases. Vishal, what is there a matrix that you use? What is your analysis? Which use cases will go to the top? This is one of the big questions your peers
Yeah.
had for you.
And I think it's a great question with not a one size fit all,
Hmm.
as you can imagine. So in some ways, each company has to kind of answer it for itself. But I'll give you some frameworks to think about, and I'll also give you some color in terms of what we have found. So as you know, we are a manufacturer, we're a couple $1 billion in revenue. We create edge devices where people could be running AI on them. We obviously have imaging, which is printing and all kinds of use cases there. And so because I have the role of both the CIO and the CTO, uh, I thought from my mandate perspective, I should look at embedding AI in our key processes and our key products. So that was the kind of framework I took, right? Now, if I think about our key processes, I'll talk about both the process we took and the some of the, approaches we took. So from a process perspective, one of the things that I have learned, in my life as I've kind of, been on this journey a few times as a C level is ultimately the from a change management perspective, the buy-in upfront is very critical, right? Even if I know the answer as a CIO, CTO, and you just go and say, hey, this is the right use case, go and do this, it's actually of no value until you have the buy-in. So sometimes, and this is something I learned at Cisco, sometimes I had the president of Cisco was a great mentor of mine, and he taught me that sometimes to go fast, you have to go slow. And it was actually very seminal thinking. And what he really meant was get everybody really aligned behind you. Because when that happens, then you have a force multiplier. Otherwise, people are second guessing it. So one of the things we did for the AI part was, firstly, we just wanted to see if we had ideas, and we got those 2000 ideas. And then we said, clearly, we cannot prioritize from this 2000. This is not going to work. And so we created a steering team, Sanjay, and we actually had each of our C levels nominate one VP to represent what are the top two use cases that are going to make a 8 or a 9-figure difference to them. So we framed the problem in a very crisp way to say, instead of me coming up with a use case, I want you to come up with a use case. We will be there to support you, to partner with you, to tell you the power of possible, to tell you where we have data, where we don't have data. But I really want you to define the problems that are gonna materially change what you do, that are gonna have a material impact on you. And I think that was honestly the best thing we could have done, because even though that process honestly still took another 2 months for people to really figure out, it's much easier to figure out 100 use cases than it is to figure out two use cases that are going to make really, a 10 or a 50 or $100 million difference to you. But it actually gave us not only the interlock, it actually helped because we helped develop the business cases together with them. It gave us the buy-in because we needed a lot of buy-in, not to just develop the thing, but to roll it out, right? You were talking about change management. And so I'll give you some examples of the use cases that we have seen massive impact on. So from a product perspective,
Can I just stop you for one
yeah,
second? I've
sure,
made a mistake. Can you, for our global audience, just give a brief idea of what Lexmark is so that it becomes, when you explain the use cases, it'll make a lot. I know what
sure.
Lexmark is, but everybody just might not. I should have asked
Sure.
you up front. So
So no worries. So
sorry about that.
Lexmark is, we make, as I mentioned, printers
Hmm.
that are used. We make a lot of software. We also develop what we call as a managed print service, which some of the biggest customers in the world, the likes of Walmart, CVS, Walgreens, Target, and all use. So that way we are managing not just one or two, but a fleet of tens of thousands of these devices as a service, where it's
Hmm.
automatically being managed, it's automatically being filled with supplies and all of that. And we are also a lot into now things like edge devices, which could be running vision AI in them, that's really transforming what the enterprises are doing. So that's what we're about. We were a spin out in 1991 from IBM. So sort of come from very strong technology roots, a lot of PhDs, a lot of people, a big patent portfolio and all. And so coming back to your some of the use cases,
Hmm.
so in the products, right? If I'm making these products, we have, about 7 million printers deployed all over, of which maybe a couple million are fully connected to the
Hmm.
cloud and can do all kinds of processing. And so we thought about it. We said, you know, in our business model, hardware actually is a loss leader. The real money is made in supplies with a toner. So if we are able to make our printers last longer, that's a better thing for the customer. They're not having to make a replacement. It's better for us because we're not having to forward invest every, couple of years. And so one of the things we were able to do with AI is, in average, the printers last about 4 years in the industry, 4 to 5. Uh, we through by streaming the data through IoT and by running AI models on it, we were able to extend its life to 7 years. Now, this is a game changer because now it's less disruption for the customer, less capex investment for them, and much better for our bottom line, right? And so, so that was one use case, and we have about 10 use cases like that in our product itself. So around, our products automatically, it's like the machine ordering for supplies for itself using AI and being extremely accurate about it versus anybody doing it manually. Most of the industry does it manually. We have 96% supplies fulfillment with zero human touch, because the AI model is running in and it's predicting how many days to deplete, and it knows how much the shipping time is, and it's making sure the supplies enter precisely a day before it depletes. So that way we have zero wastage and those things. And so, we have predictive maintenance. So that way, because we're in the front office, we want to make sure the stuff doesn't go down. If it has a problem, we know about the problem and we can fix it beforehand. And so we have, massive 99% renewal rate in the industry. That renewal rate is in 1992. And so, so AI has created for our products a very significant advantage in things that matter to us. Then from a process standpoint, I'll give you maybe two or three examples. You know, every business has to sell. That's fundamental, Sanjay, to any business you are in, right? Whether it's an enterprise or consumer. One of the big challenges you face when selling is how do you prioritize among all the opportunities you've got? So instead of just relying on the probability that comes from the sales guy, we can use AI to predict in a very precise way how to prioritize the different opportunities, the probability of the sale, and we can also predict what action to take to increase that probability. So I can actually figure out, should I be bringing this customer to my executive briefing center for a visit, and what would be that worth for me in that opportunity? Or which sales guy should I be even assigning to this particular opportunity? And we've seen material difference from to being able to prioritize sales lead, being able to create automatic proposals, what we call as RFP bots. We have created that automatically answer the RFPs. We have not replaced the human, we've augmented them. In the past, we used to need 2 weeks to be able to respond to RFPs. Now we can, even if it's a couple days, we can respond to that. So a lot of additional revenue we can create with the same team while still having it. Similarly, in customer support, right? Our average handling time, nobody likes. The last thing customers want is to be on a call with a vendor describing them the problem, right? We all know how uh, you know how not exciting that is. Now we know people like to get the things resolved immediately, so we do want to have humans that you can call and them picking the call on the first ring. But through AI, we're reducing our average handling time by 50%. That's a win for us, 50% less cost. If I have 800 agents, that's very material. But it's also a win for the customer, much higher satisfaction. Instead of spending 8 minutes, they're spending 4 minutes on the call. And so I would say you'd have to understand your business. You'd have to understand what's going to make the material difference, because even with AI, the reality is to implement any of these use cases will take you 6 months or even a year, because there's a lot of safeguards you have to put in to really measure the data, measure the accuracy, measure how the human in the loop will work and everything. And that's why prioritization matters so much, because I'm interested in doing things with AI that are enterprise wide and not just running a bunch of interesting demos and proof of concepts. So sorry, long answer to a short question, but I wanted to do
Yeah.
some justice to it.
No, but it's a great answer. Uh, your use cases are increasing revenue, reducing costs, all at the same time, because it comes down to this question, which I get from a lot of peers and a lot of CEOs is, how do you figure out the ROI of the investment? And Vishal, you talked about the board and everything else.
Yeah,
You also have, I presume you have a CFO also who is saying,
we
okay,
do. And
Vishal,
he's
tell
he's
me
very tight.
where's the
Yeah,
money. So
yeah,
for your peers, they wanted to know, are you
absolutely.
using tangible ROI? Are you using intangible ROI, whether it's
Yeah.
customer satisfaction, etc.? Tell them a little bit about how do you figure that out.
Absolutely. So I think I'll give you two parts of the answer.
Hmm.
One around alignment,
Hmm.
which actually matters, right? So, one of the things I learned besides having the people give you the AI use cases
Hmm.
was see, for them to even give you the right use cases, they need to have people in their teams who understand and believe in the power of AI,
Hmm.
because that's how this game gets played. I think that is our secret sauce, honestly, not just the technology.
Hmm.
So one of the things I did was, when I joined in February of 2021, the same month, I said I need a strategic alliance with a partner, maybe an education partner who can help us develop the AI talent,
Hmm.
because talent is going to matter a lot in this. This is essentially a war we are in, right? It's a war of talent, right? For
Mhm.
AI, for the right use cases. And so by tying with North Carolina State, they were having something called AI Academy,
Mm.
and we became one of the founding members of it.
This was in
And
21. This was pre
this is
chat
in February
GPT.
21. That's right.
Wow.
So because I've had a lot of experience with AI, as I mentioned to you, right? And
Yeah.
so I knew coming in, we're in a declining industry. If we're going to differentiate ourselves,
Hmm.
we need all the secret sauces we can get, right?
Hmm.
And clearly, one secret sauce is cloud, and so I made a massive focus on cloud, and there was AI.
Hmm.
But for cloud, we were ready. For AI, we were not because we just had five data scientists, and I knew that that's not going to be sufficient.
Hmm.
And so what that did for us, though, Sanjay, is by tying with NC State, and we
Hmm.
said instead of creating a center of excellence, we'll create a center of influence,
Hmm.
which means I'm going to train people not just in my team, but in the CFO's office, in HR, in commercial, in this. And so over time now, we have gone through seven cohorts of 15 people each. These people are trained every day for a period of a year. They get four university certificates, which otherwise you'd have to pay $33,000 for. And what that has done for us is it's not just scaled up our talent from 5 to 100, so it's a 20x increase. It has actually given us an excitement and a knowledge across the functions. And so my CFO is not going to listen to me as much as he's going to listen to his team. And his team is telling him, hey, not only have I learned AI, these use cases, I'll give you a very simple example that our CFO is using. They're using AI to predict how much cash they need. Now, this may sound non-trivial, but given the cost of capital, if you're keeping 20 million additional cash, that's costing you real money, $2 million extra money every year. And so if you can be very precise at different points, what you really need, it actually creates a big thing. And so their people are the ones who come to us and say, hey, instead of solving this by Excel model that we did in the past, we want to solve it and partner with you. And so I think that, so because, I can create any ROI model, honestly, Sanjay, ultimately questions comes on trust, interlock, and believing, right? The mathematical model is Lagos. Humans work on ethos, which is emotion. And so the emotion part is very, very critical, no matter if you ignore it. And so in our thing, we not only had them involved in terms of identifying the use cases, we had them involved in terms of also the talent aspect and the believability aspect, and we're all in it together aspect. And I think that enabled us, when we did the ROI, we did it together upfront before we even built a single line of code. And then we manage the change management process to see, are we getting it? What problems are we seeing? And being very transparent with the problems and not having a rah 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 thing. And so I guess if I had to give one message to your team, it would be that this is really no different from any other large technology project where you really need the interlock. If you're not going to have the interlock, it's not going to work. It's really as simple as that. Uh, in our industry, right, in 24, we're a private company, so I can't reveal the exact data, but we grew almost 5x faster than the market. And our profits grew almost, in high double digits in a market where it's declining. And obviously, there's a lot of factors contributing to that, but AI was a key factor as well. And so I think the ROIs are always possible, but it needs a lot of alignment. It needs to tackle the right problem. It needs to, drive the change management to then do the deployment enterprise wide and have a pattern where you're constantly learning what's going wrong, fixing that. That's why these things take a little bit of time, and they're not a magic button. And we've actually tried also thinking, here is a vendor who's saying they have ready-made AI, try it. It doesn't work, right? Because it's based on
Hmm.
somebody else's data that is trained. And so it's not as simple as it sounds. It does take, to me, just like any other technology, it takes, a level of thinking and planning and deployment focus.
Wow, just such great gems and nuggets in there. I think I might need a three-part series with you. But coming to, no, seriously, to what you have done, and this is very important for some of our listeners, is you created strategic ambassadors across different departments, whether it's in the CFO office, in the
Right.
HR. So you don't have to evangelize it or look for ROI. They are doing this, and also you created a talent pool because, right, I want to address the issue of talent also, because that's becoming, I mean, you talk about war for talent, so let us address that. uh, I'm sure, I don't know if you got a mail from Mark Zuckerberg offering you,
The
I
$200
don't
million
know.
dollars.
Yep. Or maybe check your spam filter, Vishal. Maybe.
Yeah.
Yeah, that might be the
I
situation.
think it went where the Nigerian prince's email go.
But there is a intense, because all these things have a cascading effect.
Yeah,
People are
they do.
talking about them as NBA or NFL players, and these are research scientists. So
Yeah,
what? And when I talk to these peers, is if there is someone coming out of Carnegie, Wharton, etc., why should they be coming to Lexmark? Are you basically internally creating yours? And the other thing is, what do you look for in the people that you hire? What are the traits? Because we have a lot of
sure,
listeners, and listening to you, especially some of the innovative things you've talked about, they will be coming and applying to you. But what do you look for? What do you think
sure.
about this war for talent? Build versus buy talent, so to
Yeah.
speak.
So Sanjay, because we were cash constrained,
Hmm.
we were not only were we cash constrained, our culture is such, our engagement scores, Sanjay, are in early 90s, which is
Mm-hmm.
unprecedented for a company. Like when Mercer does our engagement
Mm-hmm.
scores, they always think there is something strange going on. They're like,
Mm-hmm.
we just don't even see this from like Fortune 50 companies. How are you doing it? And I
Mm-hmm.
think our CEO has created a great culture, right, Alan Wogerman, around respect, around development of people, around rotation of people. And
Mm-hmm.
so that's one of the things that inspired me to do it this way. So one of the other thing that we have done is not only we did something for these 100 people who had this massive daily training for 1 year, we actually created an AI course for everybody in the company.
Mm-hmm.
And we thought, and that course is not a long course, right? It's a series of videos you can take. It'll probably take you just a couple hours. We thought maybe about, out of the 8,000 people, maybe about 10%, 800 will do it because it's not a mandatory course. It's not like a compliance course. We were surprised almost 6,000 people took it. And it's
Wow.
because I think people are realizing themselves that this is the future, right? It's not because, hey, this was
Yeah.
some very good looking person doing it or it was a very interesting content. It's because people are also motivated. They're reading the same literature you and I are, and they're knowing
Mm-hmm.
this is where the future lies, and everybody wants to do ultimately well. And they are embracing. So I guess my message to my fellow listeners really would be, you know, um, enabling your existing talent is a massive opportunity that you may want to explore. Whether it's from a user perspective, whether it's from a creator perspective, right? You can have different personas
Mm-hmm.
uh, in the AI because also adoption of it. Because if they don't have the trust in AI, they'll not also be a good adopter. And you
Mm-hmm.
don't want that of people who are always doubting things and all. You want some level of doubt, but not just being 100% skeptical. So I think that is one aspect around just thinking about enabling. So our focus was maybe 90% build. I mean, 90% enabling within,
Mm-hmm.
developing within, and 10% acquisition from the outside. And so what we look for people, one of the things we do, which is very interesting, is we run a program called TRP, Technology Rotation Program. And what that program does is it enables us to not only do a lot of work with people during internships, which a lot of companies do and all. When we onboard somebody, we actually rotate them through a lot of different kinds of technology experiences. And so we take them through three structured rotations of 8 months each. And so for AI, it becomes actually these people become a great feeding ground because they become not only are they coming from the universities and they know a lot of the technology, they actually really understand our business in that period of 2 years as they're going through various rotations and learning different technologies. And we find that instead of hiring a lot of lateral talent, the $100 million that Mark is going after, we can't afford it. And so we develop 90% within, and then 10% we are actually driving more from college hires, right, from the best colleges we can find, but then taking them through this technology rotation program. And after the 2 year journey, these people become, we're finding that they're actually some of the best AI engineers we have, because they've really learned technology, they've learned the business. Now we bring them into a structured process of saying, let's go tackle this problem. Let's teach you ML ops. Let's teach you how agentic architectures work. Let's teach you, how to really collaborate effectively with the teams and make things happen. So that's kind of been the approach that we have taken.
So you have this TRP program. So that's good to know for, hey, young kids who are coming out of college. Lexmark has this program because
Right.
one of our missions, Vishal, with this podcast and our organization is democratize AI talent. If, you
Mm-hmm.
know, all the talent ends up with this magnificent seven, we will never
Right.
see the true value of this technology because it's the Lexmarks, it's the Schneider Electrics, the Siemens, it's the financial services, manufacturing, retail, etc., who are doing some cool stuff. Coming to that point, Vishal, we talked about the role of the CIO, CAIO.
Mm-hmm.
You've heard this expression. It's now in the tech world we live on cool expressions, vibe coding or whatever you want to call it.
Sure. Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Is the today when you said it is coming ground up, if I'm in the finance department, in the HR department, and this is for your peers more so,
Sure.
why do I need a CIO office? Because I don't need people to code for me. I know my business. i
Sure.
can i can do context prompting, or prompt
Sure.
engineering, whatever. Is that, and I'm not talking just Lexmark, but do you think
Yeah.
that is going to change things across the board in some way?
Yeah. I think change is inevitable, Sanjay, right? I think the only thing that I think is certain in life is change, right?
Yeah.
That's something we can all take to heart and to our bank. Now the question becomes, what value can that change bring, right? Change for itself is not useful, right? The change is to enable something. And so I do think, to your point, the role of CIO has changed and will continue to change. And for that matter of fact, the same is true for the role of CFO, this role of the CHRO, and so on, right? And so in this new world, one of the ways that we are approaching AI is to say, we know everybody likes to get secure job, likes to get raises. The only way to do that is by increasing productivity, right? Because I can't give you something that I don't have. And if I'm able to increase my productivity by a certain percentage every year, then I can share a part of that gain with you. And so if you actually look at the US economy, Sanjay, our productivity as a nation, even when we have a GDP growth, has not really gone up, right? Our productivity has actually been stuck a little bit despite the GDP growth that's been happening, right? And that's just been the case over the last maybe 10, 15, 20 years. So in my vision for AI, how we are thinking about it, how I think we can all think about it in a more positive way would be, can the work with AI drive a 3 to 5% productivity improvement every year consistently across functions? Whether I'm in HR, whether I'm in finance, whether I'm in sales, whether I'm in marketing, not a one time, a continuously increasing function. Let's say if it drives 5% incremental every year, now I can actually give you a 3% incremental raise to whatever you were getting before, because I'm maybe sharing half the gain with my person. Now, imagine that is very powerful. That's what we, not just in America, but across the world, we've not had that, right? Because essentially we're mostly getting the gain, which is even less than inflation many times. We're talking about real gain of productivity and a real impact. Now, what would that take? That would actually change a lot of people's jobs, right? So if I'm a CIO, my job cannot just be about, hey, I'm going to just implement some technologies for you, right? I need to be able to think about, how do I figure out the actual impact of those technologies, how to enable that as a true business partner, as opposed to, hey, I got this vendor, I got it deployed, now it's your problem if you're getting the gain or not, right? So I have to become, so I think each of us will have to become not only an agent of change, but an agent of developing the outcome from the change, enabling the outcome from the change to drive ultimately better economics, better satisfaction, better productivity for each of us, and in turn gain the outcomes from it. And so, yes, everybody's job will change. AI probably, we've heard the words copilot, right? I think AI will certainly be a superpower for whatever you're trying to do. Also, you're going to have autonomous AI as well, which will be able to also replace some of the things that are actually very predictable and tactical and just toil that can be automated. And whether we like it or not, those things are going to come. And so the choice that each of us have is how we adopt to it versus whether we can stop it. We cannot stop this thing, but how we adopt to it in
Mm.
a way to create a more positive outcome and how we take participate in this journey are the choices that we have.
You're sounding, and tell me maybe, and this is something I ask all these chief AI officers, you're sounding more and more like the chief transformation officer. Because you're talking about transforming your enterprise. You talked about productivity gains across the board, function change. That's an enterprise transformation more than, it's not just, hey, man, we're going to do ML ops and this and that. It's really transforming the country, transforming the world. And that brings me to something you touched upon, which is the topic du jour of everybody, which is agentic AI and agents. So, firstly, from a Lexmark standpoint, and then we'll go up, are you looking or have you implemented agents? And then, more importantly, before we do that, what is your definition of agents? Because
Yeah,
everybody
has their
has a
own
different
definition.
definition on this show. So I want to record yours for future.
Yeah. So I think in my mind,
Mhm,
agentic AI is coming a step closer to actually how the human brain works. If you think
mhm,
about how the human brain works, Sanjay, is um, you know, we do a variety of things.
mhm,
Uh, so now you have a variety of agents. Um, a lot of those things, if I think about how the work actually happens today,
mhm,
you have a team. Some people do the work. You have a supervisor who actually then validates the work. You have people, maybe a project manager who actually breaks a project into multiple tasks and assign to different people different tasks. And if I think on the parallel, essentially that's what agentic AI is doing. You're right. You have supervisor agents, validation agents. You have agents who will do very specific tasks. You have a concept of planning that's taking a sort of a process or a task that is a little complex and breaking it into different steps, assigning those steps to a different agent, and then somebody collating the data and then publishing the data and all, right? And so I think agentic AI is essentially an evolution. We had we had the normal ML, then we sort of had this chat GPT and the chat bots. Then we sort of had, some of the more extensive pieces with the operator model where we said, hey, not only can you do the chat, but you can also automate certain functions. Now, agentic AI is truly the next generation, which is saying, essentially how human teams work, how human mind works. We are
mhm,
creating the infrastructure where you'll have a set of these agents. Some of them could be doing the prep for what the human would do. So they're precursor
mhm,
agent. Some of them may be postcursor agent where the human, for example, makes a visit to see a person um, at home that is funded by Medicare. Maybe they go and see a senior, and there's a set of agents that do all the work prior to that to tell them where to go, what the person has, summarizes all that information, and there's a part that will probably, instead of the human going and filling in Epic and all of that, will do that for them and file the claim and do all the paperwork and write the email. And so that's how, in my definition of agentic AI agents, it works. And that's why I'm actually really excited about it, Sanjay, because I can see it. I think the prior version of AI was more democratic and kind of like, hey, look at what I can do. I can create a document. But we do far more than creating documents, right? We actually get things done. And so with agentic AI, I think we have a framework which, especially if it acts on your data, integrates with your data repositories, has a level of trust that can be built in and can do that. Now, we have certainly done a lot of experimentation with agentic AI. I'll give you some examples both within Lexmark and outside. Uh, Within Lexmark, one of the things we pride ourselves is, hey, we are very good on verticals, right? We have a lot of vertical knowledge. We understand your business in healthcare, in manufacturing, in retail. And so we have these teams of vertical experts who work with customers, who work with sales teams and deployment teams, but we have very few of them. So one of the things we have done, which is a very fascinating use case, is we have replicated by examining all the work output that that vertical expert has produced and feeding that as the data. We have actually we're replicating these vertical experts. So instead of
Mm,
having now two experts and them taking 6 weeks to write up a piece of content, we're
mhm,
having AI agent get trained on their style of writing by looking at 200 pieces of documents that they have produced
mhm,
and producing it. The vertical expert, instead of producing the content, will now review the content because
mm,
it's already in their style and the words they use and the things they do. And so it's a force multiplier for them. It's reducing the amount of backlog that they had to have. We are not reducing them, we're actually increasing the number by essentially augmenting them through an AI agent. The second very interesting use case that we have done is for our customers. In the past, what happens is, when you have a new release, let's say a new operating release of your printer software, people take a long time to deploy it and then they have the security issues. The same thing happens with our laptops, right? Where you'll see, okay, Microsoft has released this patch, but I'm still stuck on 3 things old because it requires me to do a set of things. So why
mhm,
can't AI agent do that? So imagine an AI agent that can actually go and automatically upgrade while the stuff is, from 2 to 4 a.m. when you're not using
mhm,
it, something like this. And then one other one can track, did all the upgrades happen correctly? If something didn't happen correctly, it can roll it back. It can tell you now what your security vulnerabilities are. So imagine just simplifying that process, which is creating the security hassle for you in a very easy programmatic kind of a way. So those are two good examples of how we are using agentic AI. I'll give you one example. I'm on the board. I'm on a number of advisory boards and boards as well. So one of the companies which I partner very closely with is called Verdure RCM. I'm a very passionate about healthcare space because I feel like we have the highest spend on healthcare and the worst outcomes. So something has to be done better to transform it. And one of the areas why that is the case is the whole medical billing is very complicated, process. So one of this company's Verdure RCM, what they have done is they have used agentic AI to really automate and simplify this process of prior authorization. That's what you need to file with a payer. When you have a problem, we have seen why the UAG CEO, had this violent effort because of this whole prior authorization problem. It delays the care for the patient because it takes weeks and weeks and a lot of manual toil. What if you automated that? What if we took all of the pieces that had to happen for prior authorization, where we could, have an agent that goes to all the payer websites, collects the data, collates the data, determines if the prior authorization is even needed, which itself takes a nurse today 20 minutes of a call, and then creates a document and submits those documents and all, and just have the human review the stuff. And this way really, drive maybe a 80-90% automation. And so I am therefore quite excited about the agentic AI technology. Ultimately, it needs good data, it needs good validation, it needs, just like any other technology, you have to trust but verify, right? But I think it's bringing us closer to how real work gets done.
bringing us closer to how work gets done. You're implementing it, and it's, you're saying it is how we think about it. In terms of, I had several guests in the past few weeks. I spoke to one of the top leaders at Salesforce. They have this agent force,
Yeah.
and several other companies, etc. The pricing models are being thought about very differently for agentic.
Hmm.
It might, as he said, it could be based outcome based, it could be
Yeah.
replacement of labor based, etc. Um, and then the question is, who do these agents also report to? Vishal, are
Correct.
these agents reporting to the CIO's office? Are they reporting it to functional leaders? Because people say, hey, they are a digital workforce.
Yeah.
So, and then I had
Or maybe HR.
or maybe HR. That's what I'm saying is,
Yeah.
and then I had the a chief AI officer of one of the leading cyber companies in the country, Zscaler, and he was talking
Yeah, I know
about
Jay
some.
very well.
Yeah, so the question becomes is they talked about challenges even with these agents where they've said MCP servers have been hacked.
Yeah.
So, you had some experience with cyber, with Unisys and things of that nature,
And semantic, yeah.
and semantic. Any thoughts, obviously, just across the board on the security of within AI? We talked about, I've talked about, uh,
Sure.
breaching, some of the AI, the LLMs, as well as even
Yeah.
with agentic. He talked about rogue agents too. So, what are your thoughts on
Uh,
that?
I think I 100% agree,
Mm-hmm.
Sanjay, with what some of the folks before have said. That's why I feel that we should treat AI as any other technology, right? We don't want the hype cycle to overtake the common sense that has to be applied, right? It's like a gun, right? The gun can
Mm-hmm.
save you, and the gun can also cause a problem. And so you got to just, use it for defense and not offense, and not on yourself, certainly. And so, you know, I'll tell you a couple things to think about in the questions that you brought up. I think one element is the world of security changing with AI. So I'm actually, on the board of three different companies as advisor. One of them is doing very interesting work in SOC automation. So
Mm-hmm.
if you think about it, right, uh, everybody, you've got all these problems of security happening in your company. Very difficult, just like with AI people, very difficult to retain security people. Great shortage of that. So if you think about what does a security one agent, a SOC one agent, level one agent do, they're essentially looking at all the alerts, thousands of alerts, and trying to figure out which of them really need to be investigated. It's called triage. That sounds like an analytical work that I can automate through something like agentic AI. And so that's what somebody like Symbian does,
Mm-hmm.
Symbian.io. Similarly, if I think about it, right, average CISO has about 40 shiny objects, 40
Mm-hmm.
pieces of things we've already invested in, and we still don't have the outcomes. So
Mm-hmm.
what if agentic AI can see if each of these pieces, whether it's the Zscaler or the CrowdStrike, today Palo Alto is buying
20
CyberArk,
billion.
right? 20
Yep.
billion
Seven.
CyberArk. So what if I can actually see, because the CISO reports to me as well, and so we think a lot about, these are very complex problems that are honestly unsolvable in the traditional ways we have done it, because very hard to build a team. And when I have the team, I have attrition, even with the high engagement scores we have, because somebody's trying to give them 30% more. And so that's just the way that land will work.
Mm-hmm.
So can agentic AI do some of that work which we're leaving aside today, and it's happening that these things are getting breached? And so, this company called Discern is using Discern.ai is using agentic AI to essentially look at the configuration for your top 20, 30 cybersecurity tools and tell you, are you on the right release? Are the agents up and running? Are they configured correctly? Because there's a lot of complexity involved even in configuring a piece of software when you have it,
Mm-hmm.
right? So that's kind of on the cyber side. I think as I think about digital workers, kind of going more broadly, um, you have to definitely trust but verify, or actually verify even before the trust, right? And so you have to think about what's going to cause these workers to come into being, when do they work, how do I actually check their output, how do I know what they're doing is correct,
Mm-hmm.
uh, what is what is it that they're being optimized on? How do they get upgraded? How do they get initiated? How do they get provisioned, deprovisioned? How do
Mm-hmm.
I account for like a bad day scenario where there is a rogue agent? What's going to
Mm-hmm.
monitor that? Do I need some kind of a monitoring agent that's
Mm-hmm.
monitoring the other agents, just like
Yeah.
I was supervisor monitoring those
Mm-hmm.
things? And so I think I would just learn from how today the work gets done, how we have checks and balances, because people can go rogue too, and
Mm-hmm.
what are the checks and balances we provide to make sure they don't, and think about those parallels in the digital world. And if we did that, right, we'll take advantage of already the learning of 100 years that we've already been organized and doing things in teams and all, instead of starting from scratch.
Yeah. Uh, those are a lot of important things to think about. Finally, Vishal, I mean, this is part one of a series of a three-part series with Vishal. Uh, you deal with a lot of data, and also we talk about ethics in AI. We talk about responsible
Yeah,
AI. What is do you within Lexmark have an ethics board, or what? How are you
we do.
dealing with this? Tell our listeners a little bit. How do you deal with this? Because it can't
Sure.
just be all go 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 go,
Yeah,
right?
100%. So I think actually, right, if I reflect back on what I said earlier, to go fast, sometimes you have to go slow.
Hmm.
So I think governance and ethics and security are some of the pillars that you actually have to invest and put in place before
Hmm.
you can go fast, right? And that's true not just for AI, but for any key technology that you're going to roll out. So we created an AI ethics board almost a year back.
Hmm.
And what's interesting is we actually search for a lot of data to say what should we pattern it after. US doesn't have a lot of data
Hmm.
that will guide you. Europe does. So UK actually has a number of interesting approaches around AI
Hmm.
ethics that they have taken. And we created an AI ethics board. We actually had representation even from HR on it as
Hmm.
well. So there's about 6 people on it. And the primary purpose of the AI ethics board is to say, should these problems be even solved by AI? Because, for example, if I have a problem about evaluating somebody's performance, we think this problem has too much risk of getting solved by AI because if you're wrong, impacting somebody's career, which is just not something we want to do, right? And so
Hmm.
we are essentially, um, looking at both. Should this problem be even solved by AI? Because we believe there's a certain set of problems where AI should not be touching. And secondly,
Hmm.
we also look at how should we evaluate the quality of the data for bias? Do we have because garbage in, garbage out, wrong data, incomplete data will lead you to the wrong conclusions. You'll never have complete data, but we want to document what all data was used for this, what are the known gaps, so we can,
Hmm.
in a continuous improvement model, think about getting more and more data to fill those gaps. So it's a question of transparency as opposed to perfection. So those are the two pieces we took from the AI ethics board. And I would say security, ethics, governance, data quality are absolutely key because whether you have agentic AI or LLM models or deep learning or any of these, they all rely on data. And
Hmm.
you really want to make sure you're making the right decision on data, the right data cleansing, the right data ingestion, know the unknowns, and have those processes in place. Otherwise, you will you'll run into issues.
That's good to know. Security, data, ethics, governance, key part. I think that's a great message for all your peers out there. Vishal, at the end, we do just a quick for our TikTok oriented listeners, a lightning round, yes and no. Are you ready for that?
All right. So I have to say just
Okay.
yes now.
Yeah, well, one word answer. Just pick
Okay.
one. We'll give you two options, and these are well, you kind of had addressed some of this. So you
Sure.
ready?
I am.
Okay, cloud or on-prem AI?
Um, I would be contrarian. I'll say on-prem because you
Okay,
want it to run on the edge.
okay. Would you build or buy AI solutions?
Uh, right now, more build, um, simply because, okay, I'll just say build for
Okay,
now, just given
okay, cool. I like decisiveness. Python or R for enterprise AI?
Python,
Okay, TensorFlow or PyTorch?
PyTorch.
I'm going to give you an easy one. Edge or cloud computing for IoT AI?
I think I already mentioned that, right? Edge, I'm probably more
Yep,
biased towards.
I know that. Supervised or unsupervised learning?
Probably supervised. I can do more with it.
Okay. Open source or proprietary AI tools?
Uh, Open source, I believe in not having vendor lock-ins.
Open source it is. Vishal, thank you. It's just really been absolutely fascinating to, we've covered such a vast, from, the board, from, security, from, talent, uh, agentic AI, just transformation, your perspective on creating, ambassadors within different arenas, how to pick the right use cases, building AI platforms. It's just and creating an innovation culture. Thank you for sharing your expertise. And for our listeners, you can connect with Vishal on LinkedIn and follow his insights on enterprise AI, IoT, and digital transformation. And until next time, I'm Sanjay Puri for the CIO podcast, where we explore the journeys, challenges, and the successes of leaders shaping the future of enterprise AI like Vishal. Thank you, Vishal. It's been fantastic.
Thank you so much, Sanjay, for the opportunity. I really enjoyed it.
Great.